Hello, my name is Cinder, and welcome to the devlog number 2 for Gaslight. It's going to be pretty brief on the devlog side, as you probably can tell from the title. Hopefully I title it appropriately. But as you can see, there's only a couple main things. Well, I guess there's 3 main things that I've done, which is just adding a little bit of the interactive UI, as you can see with the book there. And then earlier I was toying with the setting down and the picking up of the lantern, which is definitely something that's going to need a lot more animation, a lot more fluidity to it. And this is the last thing, which is the AI, which I mentioned in a previous video that I'd kind of scrapped the AI, and so I've gotten back into that. I hadn't really had much experience with coroutines, which is basically just, if you're unfamiliar, it's like a second flow of the game code that works in parallel with everything else that you have running. So it's very useful for things like AI that are supposed to be running autonomously. And these are just some general things, which is going to be the second half of this video, which is the design half, because development and design are 2 completely different things. I've had a lot of work on the design for this game over the last year, and as far as development, right now I'm kind of crunched on development time because of school wrapping up. I'm nearing the end of a semester, which means a lot of projects all coming to a close at the same time. And so I'm just going to be talking about the design of the game a little bit, real quickly, just some expanding over some of the stuff that I've maybe alluded to in videos or kind of touch on in the Greenlight page. I just wanted to get a little bit more in-depth with the design while you're seeing some of my references go on in the background of stuff that I looked at in order to help inspire the aesthetic that I'm going for and the 2D or the 3-dimensional art. And it's all very period specific, which is kind of a big thing for me in this game. It's supposed to be very much feel like that time period, which I'm going for somewhere around the 1860s. It's in Australia, which I think is a severely underutilized area in history. I think that even in modern media, it doesn't get explored very much in any real era or context. And it has a really interesting history, a lot of interesting... it plays an interesting role in a lot of parts of history, but it also is kind of it's a very different culture for you to explore things like the kind of Old West kind of mining town environment. And all in all, this game is kind of meant to be an exploration of the area, first and foremost, and then the mechanics kind of serve to help immerse you in that. So that's why I'm going for a very physical feeling in the mechanics. That's why with the revolver, I want you to be able to control each rotation of the cylinder. You're going to have control over each stage of rearming the gun, and it's got to have kind of I don't want to say oppressive, but maybe I mean oppressive, like that kind of feel that it's actually you doing things. It's kind of left up to you to progress, to survive, that kind of thing. And not to say that this is going to be a survival game in any sense, but if you see some of the notes that I flashed up, a lot of those are from very early development, just like a simple list of some the base models I need, and then my ideas for it. And it includes things like scarcity for different sources of light. Like I've done some economic research into this time period, and clearly, because you're going to be going into a mine in this game, light's important. Resource management is important. That's a very important part of survival horror. And I wouldn't say this is necessarily a survival game or a survival horror game. It's kind of a mixture between that, or a mixture between them, and also hopefully a platform for some interesting storytelling and some interesting environment exploration. And this is definitely an environment that you don't get to explore very often in games in a lifelike state, like with locals, with people to talk to. It's usually in these kind of games that are supposed to be kind of oppressive and survival based in one way or another. They're often very stripped down and made to make you feel completely isolated. And I think that a feeling of isolation doesn't necessarily come when you're alone. And you come into this environment as an outsider, sent there to investigate and to find out what happens. And historically, this actually happened to quell a rebellion in this area, in this time period of Australia, from the British government. So it's kind of mirroring that. I've definitely kind of based a lot of the feel of this off of that kind of envoy sent from a colonial powerhouse in order to intervene. So you're very unwelcome, I would say, in this world. and in this town, I mean, specifically. And so as to do with the AI, there's going to be several different kinds of people you encounter. So there's going to be kind of a meta system of approval that you have with these people. You're going to start very much, like I said, as an outsider, so most people will not have a high opinion of you. And this isn't going to be a very gamey system that I'm thinking here. It's going to be very simple, very merit-based. Some people are just simply going to hate you, and it's going to be very clear that, you're not going to go pick some flowers for this guy's wife and he's suddenly going to like you. It's not going to work that way. It's trying to... I would feel like that would take away from the immersion the way it does in other games, where there's just this invisible bar that you have this sense of that as you fill it up over time, eventually you get what you want. That's pretty much kind of the idea of a lot of empowering games, and this is not meant to be an empowering game. It's meant to be an experience, a very, hopefully, compelling experience in an interesting environment. Okay, so that's more or less a lot of the stuff I wanted to clear up, kind of expand on some of my design thoughts, my hope for this game, kind of what I aim for, and as far as development versus design, I definitely am a designer, but I focus on development a lot of the time because that's a necessity, which kind of leads me into the second part of my topic, which is what else I've been doing over the last few weeks, last month actually, I guess, since the last log. And I pushed myself to do this even though I didn't have a lot of show of specific game development, at least nothing that's concrete and visual, because I didn't want to just... because it would be another month of me working on it before I'd actually be able to come back and do this. So here's a couple of things that I've actually been working on. So the first thing is kind of this little pixel arty game. I'm not the artist for this game, I'm just the programmer. So that explains the visuals that you'll see here. But I really enjoy pixel art. I recently redid my website. It features some pixel art at the top, and it's based on a little bit of pixel art that a friend of mine did just in his free time, and I said I really liked the aesthetic of it, and asked if I could incorporate that into the revamping of my website, and he was alright with it. But yeah, as you can see, this game, it's just got a basic tile set. I was working around with the 2D system in Unity, and there's a lot of really cool stuff, like being able to let the 2D textures be affected by light in an appealing way. And the other thing that I've been working on is much more programmatic and technical demo intensive. So as you can see here, I basically created a painting tool inside of Unity, which there are several of these that are available for asset stores, but this is figuring out these kind of things is part of the fun for me. So, and I'm doing it for a class, so I feel like it would seem a little bit lazy for me to just purchase something and then build the game off of that, especially since I'm working with a group and I'm the programmer for the group, because that often happens because of other people's just lack of experience with it, or if they're just a audio person, then they don't really have any experience programming. But as you can see, you can either use paint while moving your head, or you can hold Alt and then it'll let you paint on a canvas that you see visually. And you can see that I'm switching colors, but the way I'm actually doing that is just sampling from any color that you see on the screen or you would see in the game. You're allowed to sample that color. And it's been just a huge pain in the ass to figure out all of the rewriting textures, basically making textures at runtime in the game in order to make them clean themselves off, become pale again when you restart the game. All of these different things are kind of coming together to make that, and I think it's meant to be kind of a exploration game, exploring an environment that you can't actually see anything until you start painting on it. And if you've seen The Unfinished Swan, which is a game that came out a few years ago to a lot of praise, it's kind of a similar idea, but this one's meant to be a lot more mechanics focused, not so much like a walking exploration, enjoying the environment, but a lot more puzzle based. Hopefully some paint based puzzles will be incorporated. I'm not really sure how far along this project's going to go because it's kind of technically limited to what you can do in Unity right now in this capacity, and it would be a lot better for me to be able to use the light mapping system of Unity and paint on that rather than painting on textures that are on the actual objects, which I'm working on. But the problem is that Unity revamped their lighting system so much, and there's so few tools. And actually, just for what you see right there, took a lot of time just because of how poorly documented these aspects of the Unity engine are. And to be honest, it's really, I think, just a C++ series of functions that I ended up using. So maybe that's why they're not documented very well, because they're not really Unity specific. But there's just not a lot of information on how to do this, and especially not in conjunction with the light mapping system, which would make, you'd literally be able to paint on anything that you can light map, which is any 3D object in the world. And that would definitely be a goal for that. And hopefully the last two things you saw, the 2D pixel art game and the paint game, I'll be able to upload these code bases, these little demos, these games, and maybe even like the source. Like I might give the scene to on my website just to get them out there. I think the painting game, as soon as we like figure out a structure for the gameplay, it would be a very easy game to convert into something that has modification tools on it. So like everybody can make their own level. Right now, the way I have it programmed, you can take any black and white texture with a certain set of parameters and use that as it'll take that as input and it'll make a brush out of it. So, you'd have the option to make your own custom brushes, and any other stuff that I add into the game will just make it a good tool for people to be able to mess around with, because it's not very mechanically heavy or like story heavy. It's just something that would be a simple little code base for people to make levels in a system. So overall, that's Gaslight. I'm ending my semester within the next month, so in a couple weeks I'll be done with it, and that's when I'll have a lot more time to be working on Gaslight. And there's another project that I won't really talk about, but there's a small project that I plan on working on over the summer with a couple of friends of mine. One of them's going to be writing it, and hopefully another will be doing art for it. And that's going to be kind of a distilled version of some of the mechanics that I'm working on for Gaslight, actually, which is going to be a lot more narrative-based, a lot more stream of consciousness focused. It's going to be more focused on theme than a lot of the other stuff I've done, because a lot of them are kind of either demo-y, story-based. This one's going to be a mechanics-based game that is focusing on theme. So I understand this has been a long video. If you stuck around this long, I just want to thank you, because this ended up a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. And this was meant to be a little bit brief because I didn't really have a lot of devlog stuff, but this is definitely part of the development process, being able to manage your time, more or less. So thanks for listening, and I'll be posting another one of these in a month. Bye.